back to Just Energy Radio with Dr. Rita Louise.
Hello and welcome back to Just Energy Radio. It's me, Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you for staying tuned to the second hour of the show. This hour we're going to be speaking to Bente Hansen about her new book, Edgar Speaks, and we're going to be covering topics like inner transformation, 2012, and earth changes. But don't forget, Just Energy Radio is brought to you by SoulHealer.com and the Institute of Applied Energetics. That's AppliedEnergeticsInstitute.com. Please do go visit those websites and the JustEnergyRadio.com website and sign up for our newsletter. We'd love it. Let me tell you a little bit about Bente and get her on. Bente Hansen is an energy healer, medical intuitive, channeler, spiritual counselor, and author. In early 2000, Australian, Bente Hansen was approached by a group of non-physical beings while she was working in her healing room. They offered to be her teachers, and she accepted. Since then, her skill in working with and understanding energy had become expansive. It took a leap of faith to accept that learning could come from totally non-physical beings. So please welcome to Just Energy Radio from DynamicEnergyHealing.net, Bente Hansen. Hey, Bente, how are you?
Oh, absolutely wonderful, Rita, and it sounds to me as though you're in a great space as well.
I am. You know, you have those really good mood days and then not so good. This is just a really good one.
I believe we have eclipse at the moment.
Well, maybe that's, I'm transforming inside. It happens.
That word transforming and the word transformation are being used so much nowadays. And when I started working with the energy of Edgar Cayse, it wasn't as widely understood and used. But, by the time I wrote the book and got it all published, it had become the in word. So I guess I'm just one of the crowd now.
Well, you can just come up with a new word, and then it'll, all be good.
Oh,
Bente,
yeah.
You have to tell me, sometimes there's like so many things I want to ask, and it's like, where do I start? I'll just kind of make a little commentary. It's like, You're talking to Edgar? Please. Okay, so now here's the question. For the people that don't know who Edgar Cayse is, could you share with them who he is so that it'll make more sense of where our conversation's going?
Okay, well, what happened was that I connected with the energy of that being back in the middle of 2007. And Edgar Cayse was born sometime in the late 1800s. I don't know exactly when. I do know that he passed away in 1945, and he's often been referred to as the father of holistic medicine. He had the ability to go into a deep trance, a self-induced sleep, he used to call it, but it was basically a trance. And while he was in that trance, it was discovered that he was able to access information from what he now refers to as beyond the veil, in other words, from the invisible realms. Some of us can call that universal consciousness, or we could say it's God or the creator source. So Edgar Cayse's talent at that time was widely, I don't know if I want to say derided, but there was a lot of skepticism around his abilities. And of course, having this unusual gift, he was then put in a position where he was, I guess, guided to, or he was provoked into proving that that there was truth in what he was channeling. So over a period of time, people who were ill would send letters to him, and he would go into his sleep, and someone would read out the letter saying, this person by this name in this city would ask, need some help. And so while he was in a trance, he was able to very clearly and vividly describe exactly where that person was, the inside of their house or whatever it may be, and then go on to do an amazingly lengthy, intense, and accurate diagnosis. He would then also give the prognosis as well as prescribe treatment. And many of those treatments were considered to be outrageous by the medical profession. But long story short is that he had an amazing rate of accuracy. And out of his 13,000 readings, I believe it's over 13,000 altogether, that were recorded, because everything was meticulously recorded, over 9,000 of those related to individual readings for health issues. And many of the recommendations for healing that came through these trance readings are still used widely today, and many people still swear by them. But he was also known for the fact that he talked about reincarnation and dream interpretation, the lost civilization of Atlantis, anything and everything. And he was a very, very clear channel, which is just amazing for someone of that age. And he also established the ARE, the Association for Research and Enlightenment, which is established down in Virginia Beach. And through the ARE, there are individuals all through the States and also worldwide who are still benefiting from the information that he channeled. So he was, truly an exceptional being when he was alive. Yeah, but having said all of that, I do not channel Edgar Cayse, because Edgar Cayse is no more. The energy that was, or the being that was Edgar Cayse, has lived his life, and he has passed on to other adventures in spirit form. So what I say is that I channel and I connect with the energy of the soul that embodied as Edgar Cayse.
Tricky. But it sounds better if you just channel Edgar. I don't know. Marketing.
Well, let me put it this way. When Edgar was alive, he was just an ordinary person like you and I. And yes, admittedly, he had gifts. He had abilities. From a very early age, he had some very mystical experiences. But the bottom line is that he was an ordinary person who read the Bible, and his vow was to read the Bible from front to the end for every year of his life, and which is what he did. He was a very devout Christian, and his focus was on helping people and providing for his family. And obviously he had a grander mission than that, but the soul that was embodied in his physical form obviously is, I won't say was, I will say is, a very highly evolved soul. And that is the energy that I've connected with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a blessing.
Mm-hmm. How did this whole relationship start? Well, wait, let me even ask an earlier question. Were you channeling prior to working with this soul, or is this a new thing that has surfaced in your life?
Yeah, well, it's channeling has been part of my background for a long time. It seems like forever. And as a young child, I had great fun talking to the invisible beings, and I astral traveled, and I loved them. I had some amazing adventures with them. But when I was young, those sorts of things weren't widely accepted, let alone tolerated within families and within the community. So by the time I got to the age of 6 or 7, I realized that I was freaking my parents out, and really it wasn't the done thing to describe all these invisible things that I was seeing as reality. So I closed down to that, and I didn't open up again until 1991. Very rapidly, the channeling came through. Did I like doing it? No. Did I consciously want to do it? Definitely not. I didn't want to be seen as weird or different. And I had a couple of very fascinating experiences in these early stages, because by the time I finally realized that, hey, this is really easy, for me it's as easy as breathing. And I realized I could do it, and so I was helping my clients and friends, and I would channel the information that came through for them and was relevant for them. And I remember one dinner party I was at, and it was a large dinner party. I didn't know all the guests. And I was sitting there, and I could feel my guides nudging me. They wanted me to channel, and I'm silently saying, no, not now. It's not appropriate. I am not ready to channel. No. And next thing, boom, they were in. And when I channel, I'm out of it. It's as though I go into I can call it semi-trance state, but in reality, it takes over. So there I was at this dinner party, and I started channeling. My voice changed dramatically, and it was, from what I can gather, it was a very disturbing message, portending the earth changes that we are now experiencing. Needless to say, at the end of it all, I was acutely embarrassed. Some of the other dinner guests were very curious, and some were in a state of fear. So after that, I just said to my guides, okay, you've made your message clear. I'm here to channel. Yes, I will do it willingly. I will allow you to teach me. I will just, do what I'm supposed to do with my life. However, let's come to some agreement. There are some times and some places it ain't kosher. I'm not going to do it. And it's been that way ever since. So I've channeled a lot of the Ascended Masters, Kuan Yin, Mother Mary, Ashtar Command, and a whole lot of others that, we don't recognize as angels and Ascended Masters, but which are high beings from the Pleiades, from the Arcturians, and so forth. So by the time Edgar came in, I was pretty comfortable channeling. And his energy is very different to any others that I've channeled, because usually when channeling, it's as though I connect with the energy on a very subtle level. And the energy connection takes place, and it's not dramatic. It just happens, and afterwards I'm fine. But Edgar's energy commingled with mine. And this is where I found it quite unnerving, and I even at times found it extremely stressful on my physical body, because I felt his energy come through my solar plexus. And in coming into my solar plexus, then stretching and moving around my body until eventually, after a number of weeks, it seemed to settle into my body. And that energy now sits there at, it's about a 12-inch. He tells me it's a 12-inch of energy filament that sits in the back of my spine in the area known as the Kundalini. And for quite some time, I had a lot of concerns about being taken over, possessed, even the possibility that I may lose my free will. Now, all of that is very important to us, because we all know who we are. Well, I hope we do. We come in and we define our sense of self. And to suddenly have this energy come in, and I'm getting cravings for food I normally wouldn't eat, and my whole life just changed as a result of it. I literally had to have had to be melded into combining another energy with mine. And that was quite a lengthy process. Not one I would recommend for the faint-hearted. Yeah. But if I may, can I just share something about the word transformation? We started talking about it at the very beginning. And when I started this journey with Edgar, I really knew very little about the man. I'm serious. I have never been an avid student of his work. I was aware of him, but if you'd asked me to talk at length about him, I could have summed up my knowledge in one or two sentences. And there was a time when someone forwarded me a link on the Internet to an interview with John Van Arken. John Van Arken is actually, I think, one of the directors at the ARE, and he had just published a book called Edgar Cayse and the Kabbalah. And John Van Arken was being interviewed on the Coast to Coast show by George Norrie. So I found it fascinating, because just about every question John was asked by George, I knew the answer to. Even though I hadn't read all the books about Edgar, I knew the answers because I've been doing the channeling. And one of the things that became really strong was the fact that in the prophecies for the current changes, the prophecies that Edgar made, he said the biggest change of all will be one of inner transformation. Now, I had not heard this anywhere. I had no awareness of it. And at this stage, I was busy putting together all of the channelings and writing my book. And, of course, the book is called Edgar Speaks, Inner Transformation. The book is all about inner transformation, which apparently, in his trance readings, is what he prophesied would be the greatest change of all. So I think
Go ahead. Keep going.
If nothing else, that validates it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that for anything to happen on this planet, for us to move forward, especially in some of the weird stuff that's going on, which I'm sure we're going to talk about here in a little bit, inner transformation is the only thing that can make it work, because trying to fix the outside isn't going to fix the problem.
That's the truth. That is the truth. And part of this inner transformation process, which I'm sure you've seen with the people that you work with, and I see with my clients, is this question that comes up constantly, and it's been coming up for a number of years, and that is, what is my purpose? What am I here for? Who am I? These are the sorts of questions that people are asking of themselves, and then because sometimes the inner mental gymnastics don't provide adequate information, people then begin asking that question outwardly, which means that then it generates a greater interest, within smaller communities, and people start to really think about the deeper meaning of life. And once you've cottoned on to this concept of, I'm not just my physical body, or there's more to life than what I think there is, then you've got the process of inner transformation really beginning to take root. And as it takes root, it can only grow, because it's a journey of exploration. It's a journey of going deeper within. And I'm excited when I see individuals really begin to thrive and to explore potentialities that they previously would never have considered. It's really exciting.
I just love when they ask that question, what am I supposed to be doing? Or actually the question I like better is, what do I want? And many of them don't have a clue. But at least they're asking the question and looking for some answers, even if they're coming to me to tell them what they want. But at least they're asking and wanting to get some guidance as to how they can answer that question.
Yeah. It's a great place to start. It's a really great place to start. And we live in a society where education is the MO. We all want to know immediately, and we want to make the changes happen, instantaneously. But when you start this type of journey of working out what it is you want, you've got to work out what it is that you don't want, and then it takes you on to, okay, these are the things that don't feel comfortable any longer. This is what doesn't resonate. What resonates? And it really becomes quite a journey, a mystical journey of unraveling and unfolding. And in this process, there has to develop a new sense of self, a feeling of trust in the process, and also an inner knowing that the journey is the most important aspect of the whole process. It's not the destination.
Well,
and it doesn't happen overnight either, does it?
But I think a lot of people are letting go of the requirement of, this is where I need to go. And this is, they might have like a general idea of, I'd like, they're putting out the energy like, I'd like to go in that way. But I think more people are learning about the concept of surrendering and of listening and following that guidance as opposed to following the head.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is one of the things that Edgar has talked about a lot with the inner transformation, is that we are shifting from a space of constantly doing, and doing. We're always busy, we're always doing, and we accompany that doing with thinking. This has been how we as a society have functioned for quite a long time. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with doing and there's nothing wrong with thinking, but in the process, we generally, in particular in Western cultures, we've lost the ability to feel and to be. And when Edgar refers to feeling, of course, he's talking about the heart center, and always checking in to see what the heart is telling you. And then he's also saying, just be with whatever is. You mentioned the word surrendering. When you surrender, you get into a state of being with whatever is happening. You are no longer controlling it because you're no longer thinking about it and doing it. You are in that state of being with whatever is. And it's actually incredibly calming and certainly less stressful on the body. And this is what I continually teach and share. And that is, we live in a world that we've become so accustomed to being extremely stressed. Our hypertension, high cholesterol, heart disease, you name it. All of these things have become very commonplace, in large fact due to our lifestyle, but also to our thinking and our belief systems. And so when you surrender and be, and then get in touch with your intuition and your feeling states, a lot of that inner tension changes. And so there is greater feeling of calmness and peace. And once you experience that calmness and inner peace, even if it's just fleeting, once you experience it, you go, wow, I like this. I want more of it. And I think it's really exciting to have the awareness that there is another way to live.
Sometimes it's a little scary.
Yes, but have you heard anybody say, yes, this is a little bit scary, I don't want to do it again? I haven't. I've heard people say, this feels so amazing. It's scary, yeah, but I want to try it again. Probably a bit like going on the roller coaster at the fairground. The first time you go on the roller coaster, for most people it's just like, oh, my heart was in my stomach and, it's scary. But you get off and you go, wow, that was exhilarating. I want to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I see this process occurring in individuals. Yeah, it's uncertain. It feels unfamiliar. But there's something about this inner transformation process that draws people in, and it keeps them hooked in a very positive way, because there is a really nice feeling being generated. And people are discovering, hey, my mind doesn't have to chatter nonstop. I don't have to resolve the world's problems nor resolve all of my issues in an instant. I can just surrender to being in the moment with whatever is, and somehow I know that whatever information I need is going to come to me, because it does. We're basically shifting, as you and I both know, and many people know, we're shifting from working in a lower vibrational frequency, and some people call this a third dimensional level. We're shifting into the higher frequencies, whether you want to call it the fourth, fifth, or even higher levels. Edgar refers to it as being multidimensional. And so when you do begin to make this shift into working in the higher frequencies, so many of the old ways of functioning no longer feel comfortable. And we have no choice but to accept and adapt to new ways of functioning.
Bente, we need to take a break here. When we come back, maybe we can kind of talk about that concept of being multidimensional. Maybe you can share with the listeners what that might feel like, or what that experience might be like. Sounds
good to me. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. It's like I have a new switchboard. I have new buttons. It's like, oh, yeah, push the button. It's that technology thing. It's more, I swear. There we go. Okay. I'm Dr. Rita Louise. We're here talking to Bente Hansen about her new book, Edgar Speaks, her webpage, dynamicenergyhealing.net, and we'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
Just Energy Radio with your host, Dr. Rita Louise, will return right after these messages. And now back to Just Energy Radio with Dr. Rita Louise.
Hello and welcome back to Just Energy Radio. I'm Dr. Rita Louise. We're here talking to Bente Hansen about her new book, Edgar Speaks. Bente, before the break, I suggested that we talk about what it would be like to be multidimensional. We have Dave in the chat room who asked a question. Where did it go? He was curious what Edgar had to say about this frequency and the dimensional shift. And so what does Edgar have to say? Where are we and where are we going?
Well, we're all changing. We're all changing rapidly. And when I began channeling the energy of Edgar Cayse, I had no idea what was coming out of my mouth. And it was always quite a surprise to me when I would then sit down at my computer and transcribe the channeling sessions. And when I channel for usually about 75 minutes, which 1 hour of that sort of channeling is equivalent to about 10 hours of intense exercise. So in a sequence, what Edgar talked about when he said multidimensionality, he basically was saying it means your energy can be in many places simultaneously. And he also talked about the fact that time is compressing. Everybody talks about the fact that time is speeding up, but it's actually compressing into the now moment. We are shifting from linear time into now time, something that, a lot of people have talked about, but now we're really feeling the crunch. And as we go into that now time, everything is in the moment. There's no future, there's no past. And we realize that past lives are coexisting simultaneously as present life and future lives. And in addition to that, Edgar emphatically states that humanity is undergoing a huge evolutionary shift. And it's very obvious from all of the studies that have been done that the human physiology undergoes adaptation at a very steady and often very, very slow rate. We talk about adaptation of the species, and we know it's a process, and it doesn't happen overnight. But by the same token, according to the channeling I've done, we as a human species are going through a rapid evolutionary change. We are shifting from the basic 2-strand DNA into 12 and even more strands of DNA, up to 24. And in addition to that, there is also what scientists have often referred to as these things called junk DNA. Now, I'm not a scientist. I cannot vouch for any of this. I can only share what I've channeled. But what's happening is that as we change in consciousness, in other words, as we become more consciously aware of who we are and the bigger picture, there is a change in our DNA structure, and we begin to light up. In other words, the biophotons that are there within us begin to become activated. They become activated. It's well known, scientists have documented that all living things hold energy, biophoton light energy. Well, with this shift in consciousness, we are becoming activated into light beings. So therefore, as light beings, we cannot and we will not function at the 3D level, three-dimensional level. We will end up thinking and living very differently. And as a consequence of that, many of the structures, such as the government, systems of government, education, religion, agreements, trade, you name it. So many of those structures that we have established as a global community will not survive in this new world where we as human beings become more light. We hold more light, and therefore we communicate differently, we feel differently, we just totally live differently. So I don't know if that's answered the question. That was a lot of channeling, I think, condensed into, a very few sentences.
Follow-up question to that. Sorry, I have a cat who's decided to wake up and want to sit on my lap.
That's okay. Mine has just jumped on my lap too.
Hi. Jet Li says hi.
Ditto back. Yeah, it's funny. As soon as you get on the phone, they need to be part of the action.
Question: where are we in this process as far as this transformation? How long do you think it'll last, or when will we be done with it? Tomorrow?
We've got a ways
Say tomorrow.
Okay. Tomorrow? Yeah, that would be good, wouldn't it? No, seriously, we still have quite a ways to go. Edgar talks about sitting in the now moment because he's there in the ethers and somewhere out there, being a multidimensional being, and he shares information with different individuals across the globe. And he says, sitting there in now time, he sees us having, the shift has been made. But in linear time, we are not there yet. However, what was really forecast or prophesied for the year 2012 is already happening because of this thing of time speeding up, and because the shift in consciousness is really happening quickly. We are already where we were prophesied to be next year, in 18 months' time. My own intuition, my own knowing, and I'm sure I get this from Edgar, is that we are on the cusp of a significant shift that's going to involve so many people worldwide that we're going to see the destabilization of many economies and societies.
Well, that's
as a result of this
happening
shift.
This week.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's already happening.
Hey, man, it could happen tomorrow, Bente.
I know, we cannot predict it. But what Edgar also says is that it basically is going to take a whole generation of time. It could even be up to 50 years of time before the full shift has been completed. My logical mind says, well, we have to change everything. We have to change the education system because the education system doesn't suit the younger people. All the children who are being born, the crystal children, the indigos, the education system that is, I guess it works for the masses, really no longer works for many of our younger children. That has to be changed. We also have to change to a more self-sustainable way of and community living. Because the way things are at the moment, the world economy is based upon a third-dimensional model, which is that money is the be-all and end-all, and the more money you have, the more powerful you are. But you can only be powerful if you take the resources and take the money, so that somebody else then is in bondage to you because they don't have much. And so, in a new reality, there are going to be major shifts in how we function as a society. Now, that's going to take another generation. We cannot.
I don't have a problem with the 50 years.
Nor do I. I won't be here by then, but that's another story.
Right. But if you think about it, Moses walked through the desert for 40 years, And one of the reasons that he was stuck out there for all those years was that all of the people that had come out of Israel and built the golden calf and whatever had to die so that a new generation could go into the promised land. But it was also to create this society that the only memory they have is based on this new system.
Mm-hmm.
There's no old-timers hanging around, or not that many.
Not that many, no, and it's not meant to be that way. And from my own perspective, my own understanding, it could be very skewed. If we want to think about the New Age movement, you know, there have been a lot of people who've started the movement very seriously, you know, in the 70s, the 80s, and I could name some very well-known names when I say this. I call these people the first wave, because there was a massive information that was brought into the general public. And nowadays everybody talks about being in the flow, about being, you know, being one with everything and giving hugs away free, whatever it may be. So we have this first wave of individuals who begin to bring in a shift in consciousness. I now see that we're in a second wave. Now, the first wave very much was about information, technology, and that sort of thing. So that was very much left brain, very linear. Now, the second wave that's now emerging is the wave that I call that's heart-centered. So, yeah, we're continuing on from the first wave, but we're now engaging in the feeling state. We are now going deeper. We are now learning to transform from within. So the knowing isn't just from book learning. It's about bringing to the surface all the knowledge and the wisdom that's held within from all lifetimes, and doing it from a space of unconditional love. And then we have the next wave to come behind this, which has already, I guess, it's been based upon the first two waves. The next wave is the younger generation who are going to begin to implement all the structural and the infrastructure changes that are needed to bring in the 1,000 years of peace that have been prophesied and which the earth is going to experience. So when I look at it in that context, what I am seeing is a beautiful plan. A plan that has been well thought out, well orchestrated, and one in which every soul who has embodied upon this planet for however long is a happy and willing participant. So that's just my personal thought. I don't get this from Edgar. This is my personal, insight into it. But when I see it in those terms, I can see a beautiful evolutionary shift taking place. And one of the things that often people will say to me, but, there's still violence in the world, and there's still war, and there's still corruption. And my response to that is, as we shift into a higher consciousness, all of that heavy energy has to come up. It has to be released. And there will come a time when we will not be living in a world where there's a lot of violence, war, and corruption. It will be gone. And Edgar is very firm about that too.
As you're talking, it makes me go, well, wait a minute. Why did I decide to incarnate during this period? Why couldn't I just wait a little bit of time and come in during the next period? It would be better.
Well, because
maybe.
That's your conscious mind. Yeah.
I know.
But it's not your soul. Your soul makes a decision. And sometimes you can say, hey, this sucks. What was I thinking? And I've thought that many times. What the hell was I thinking? But it is absolutely perfect, because as souls, and we are connected, as we do our inner work, we start to connect with that essence of our soul. As souls, we are very adventurous. Our purpose is to continue evolving, and unfortunately, from all the learning and all the awareness that I've been given, that's a never-ending journey. And so we choose to come in during times of challenge, because it's a huge evolutionary step for the soul to take. So that's why we're here.
I know. But thanks for sharing that, because I think people really needed to hear that piece. I totally agree with what you're saying. I think that the people that are on the planet right now are moving through so much internal energy. I mean, just the thought of learning to surrender or be in the moment, or, you know, some of the things that you've talked about in such a short period of time. I mean, just the whole, you know, either get with the program or not energy that we're in is hugely transformational.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the other thing, if I may share this, you're talking about getting with the program. I'm encountering a lot of individuals who've done a huge amount of inner work, and they know that they are here to help with the shift. And they know intuitively what it is they're meant to be doing, and they are waiting patiently, and they're saying, why isn't it happening? Why is it that all of the guidance that I've been following has led me to this point, but, you know, nothing else is happening? It's like everything has come to a standstill. And all I can say when I hear that, and for some reason I'm guided to share this information this afternoon, is that the universe works in now time, which means that even though you and I and many other individuals are ready to take the next step, to use a common expression, to take the next step, that next step has to fit in with now time, not linear time. And so the word patience has to come in. And along with that, trust. Because all of the information that we receive through our inner guidance generally is very reliable, and it's leading us to a point where we know that we are well and truly ready to take the next step into where we're meant to be going. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to meekly sit back and just keep meditating and praying. The other day, I got really frustrated with my spirit guides, and I just sort of said, hey, the universe needs to step up, you know, with the program. The universe needs to get with the program. And as I said this, I was really aware that my spirit guides were laughing. So I wasn't just speaking for myself, you know. It was a plain case of, hey, you know, we follow the guidance from the other side. We know that the guidance is positive, it's benevolent, and we are all working as a team to create a new reality for humanity. And sometimes it seems as though the universe is a little bit slow. So it's okay to tell the guides and the universe, step up. Yeah.
But it might be that you're ready, but not everybody else is ready, and they're waiting for the perfect moment for this to happen.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But what I've learned also along the way, and my guidance is very emphatic on this, is that it's a team effort. And all too often, we in our human bodies rely very heavily on psychic messages, on messages from the dear departed, from our spirit guides, and we, in some way, become disempowered because we really believe that we often cannot take the next step. We cannot make the next move. We cannot demand for ourselves. And my guides are saying, hey, or Edgar says, we are masters. We are equal team players. I'm not saying to go out there and have a hissy fit, but spirit guides actually like it when we show a little bit of gumption and we have a sense of humor. They like that.
They have an incredible sense of humor. I'll talk with people's guides and just, you know, in a session, and I'll ask them a question about something very serious, and I just start laughing, and it's like, sorry, but your guys are pretty funny. And this is what they said.
Exactly. Yeah, and so the message to us is don't take it all so seriously.
What will happen? I mean, if people choose to resist, or will we end up moving through this transition whether we want to or not?
Yeah, that's right. We're going to move through this. there will be, and it's already happening, there will be a lot of souls who choose to not be part of this. And so they will either be in areas where there is, some earth disasters, or they may be in areas where there's, some damage, accidents. Well, they may just take on a serious illness and pass over. And I don't know if you're like me, Rita, but at the moment I keep hearing of a lot of people who are passing over, and I'm talking about people in their 40s and 50s, and people who still would seem to be quite healthy, and you would assume they have a long life ahead of them. And the information I've been getting, both via Edgar and the other channeling I've been doing for years, is that there will be significant loss of life on this planet. All of these souls, when they do transition to the other side, do so joyfully. They go straight into the light. When the major disaster hit Japan, that earthquake with a tsunami, I did a channeling up in Woodstock in New York, and it was a very brief channeling. It was Edgar. He said that everything is perfect. This whole disaster, this whole incident is perfect. All the souls were immediately taken to the light. Their tragedy, if you want to call it that, is a gift to humanity. And you might ask, well, how in the world can it be a gift to humanity? First of all, it opens our hearts. We become compassionate. We start to realize how fragile and how important life is. We realize that we have to take greater care with our resources. We come to question the safety of having nuclear power. We also question the validity of having dense and densely populated communities living, in areas that could be susceptible to earthquakes. There's a lot of things that we can glean from such a disaster. And if nothing else, we come to realize that nature is all-powerful. And, our traditional forefathers in many of the traditional societies understood nature in a way that we don't. We, as a Western society in particular, have drifted so far away from our connection with nature. And I do believe that there is a very profound message that the earth is giving us with all of these natural disasters that are taking place. Yeah. And I'm sure you've heard this before.
But, I think it's something that people need to hear, and I think it also gives them, a little bit of peace, because people are just running around going, is it just me? Is it just me? Is it just me? And one of the messages that I keep giving to my clients is that there are so many changes going on right now that even really extra super cool people like me are having challenges just making it through, sometimes day to day, because it's a little overwhelming at times. And
it's very overwhelming, but there are some good things coming out of it. Down in New York City, and I do not live in New York City, but down in New York City, rooftop gardens have become the rage. And then in places like Brooklyn and so forth, if people have small yards, they're now turning them into organic gardens. And as a result of that, there's a sense of sharing and community, because as you grow your produce, there's always more than you need, so you begin to share it and you provide it to the markets. People are beginning to question such things as the food supply, and with that, how much self-reliance is going to be necessary in the future. And if you're going to be self-reliant, then, hey, you better get to know your neighbours and to develop a stronger sense of community, and maybe start off doing some bartering and just going back to a simpler way. So even if people are feeling stressed and sort of saying, boy, this is a bit much, there are some really positive changes taking place as a result of the Earth disasters.
That's great.
And I like it. And, that's one of the things that Edgar is very insistent on, is that we as a global community, we'll end up living very differently. We'll be in smaller communities. And he says here in the States, the so-called quality of the standard of living will decline, but the quality of life will improve, which I think is really
important. As the
important.
police go by.
Yes, well, we don't worry about them, do we? So basically, here in the States, the standard of living is going to drop, but the quality of our living is going to improve.
And I think a lot of people are looking for that. I think people just feel so unfulfilled. Oh, and we have like 1 minute. But their lives are just so unfulfilled. They're not happy in their jobs. They're not living life. They're just showing up every day for it, and they're not. It's not working for them anymore.
Exactly. And if there's one thing I would ever say to anybody, whether it's a client or a listener to the show, and that is trust in the process. When you go through a process of change, it can be, and it usually is, very uncomfortable, very disruptive, but the end result is really worth it. It's a bit like spring cleaning your house. When you're in the middle of spring cleaning your house, it looks like there's a mess everywhere because you take stuff out of your closets and you sort stuff out, you give it away, that sort of thing. But by the time you get to the end of the spring cleaning, you feel really good inside and everything is sparkling and clean. That's the sort of process we're going through at the moment.
Exactly.
We're spring cleaning ourselves out and our world.
Bente, the music's going to come up in like 1 second. Your book, available like on Amazon, bookstores, stuff like that?
Yeah, it's called Edgar Speaks, Barnes & Noble, and also on my website, www.edgarspeaks.com.
And they can buy it off your website?
Absolutely.
Like from you? So if they buy from your website, they would get a signed copy?
No, that actually goes straight to Amazon.com.
Okay, well then never mind on that. Cancel on that, people. But Edgar Speaks. Thanks, Bente, and we'll have to have you on again down the road.
Okay, thanks a million, Rita, and have a beautiful July 4th weekend.
You too. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
That's Bente Hansen. Her book is Edgar Speaks, the webpage, edgarspeaks.com. Her main website is dynamicenergyhealing.net. And next week, we have a very technical show coming on. We have Joseph Farrell talking about ancient technology and planetary warfare. And in the second hour, Steve Manley talking about multiverses. So bring your dictionary and make sure you're hooked up to the Internet because you're going to have to look things up. Anyway, I'm Dr. Rita Louise. This is Just Energy Radio. Till next week, be blessed.
Join host Dr. Rita Louise each week at this time for Just Energy Radio. Point your browser to www.justenergyradio.com for more show information and to contact Dr. Rita. Until next time.